We need to attend to these career issues because the world of work has changed. We have many factors that have contributed to that. Advances in technology, flattening of hierarchical structures in organizations, so you're losing middle management and other people. Globalization, a mobile workforce, among other factors, have really ushered in a new work environment where people are unprepared, uncertain, and as Dr. Feller would say, pretty nervously employed, and I would agree with that. I think given the dynamic, the unstable nature of work and the uncertainty, that's leading to uncertainty in people's careers as well. It's also backed up by the statistics. Approximately every 5 years, individuals change jobs in America, and the Department of Labor released a statistic last year saying that on average between the ages of 18 and 48, you will hold an average of 11.7 jobs. A lot depends here on how people would define the word job, because you might move from one job to another and it's not a major transition. But if there's 11 to 12 transitions within that time period, I guarantee you there are some of those transitions that will cause occupational frustration, maybe some work traumas, some transitional issues, and some discomfort. And if these statistics are true, then I think this statement by Mark Savickas from an article in 2011 holds very well. Mark says, rather than plan for a stable career trajectory with one employer, insecure workers today may be forced to maintain their employability for employment by completing a series of projects with different employers. Now think about that. That's a major paradigm shift. If you think about your parents and your grandparents, they might have held a position for 25, 30 years, and they might have stayed with the same company, the same organization for that length of time as well. Well, those days are gone. The days of the long tenure in a single organization are in the past. And as the statistics show, people are changing every 5 years. So this represents such a major shift that we're moving into a new paradigm. And when you have a paradigm shift, the theories of the past, we don't throw them away, but they might not be able to satisfy the paradigm that we're currently in. Research and theory is always catching up with real life. What we would say is that the paradigm shift that we are in today challenges traditional approaches to career counselling and guidance. We don't throw them away. We know that they are still necessary, but in and of themselves, they are not sufficient to deal with the career concerns and issues in this new paradigm. Now, how do we address this new paradigm? Well, Mark Savickas created career construction counselling, and Mark would say that this is an interpersonal process of helping people design a work life. Nowadays, it's not I work for CU Boulder, it's I work for Kevin Glavin, it's Kevin Glavin Incorporated. Career construction theory it's a comprehensive theory of vocational behaviour and choice that addresses the what, the how, the why of a career decision. So if you think about what is John Holland, what people choose to do. So if you choose to be a counsellor, that's the what, the content. You can't just look at what people are interested in, you have to figure out how they became interested in it. So if you became a counsellor because mum and dad said, it's the best job in the world, then we might question that level of readiness or preparedness. So the what is the decision, the how did you get there to that decision? And of great importance is the why. If what is counselling and how is mum and dad told me to get here, or let's say I really chose it because I love it, then the why is it so important to me? Essentially, there's a very personal and intimate reason behind an occupational choice. And you have chosen to do the work that you choose for very intimate and personal reasons, and that's what the why gets at. The different paradigms that we're integrating here are the psychology of individual differences, the psychology of development, and the psychology of life design. Now, the first two you've probably heard of already. When we talk about the psychology of individual differences, that's the what, that goes back to John Holland. And on the right-hand side here, you can see John Holland's Ryesack hexagon. And the question at that point is, what do I choose to do? There's the content. Lifespan is about how career spans your entire life, and you occupy your life with different roles. And that's Donald Super's rainbow over here on the right. The last paradigm is a new paradigm for the 21st century, and that's this paradigm of life design. It looks at the psychology of life design and individuality. So if you think about John Holland, he would compare you and how you resemble others, whereas in life design, we actually don't compare you to the resemblance to types or other people. We look at you as an individual. What makes you unique? And one of the things that makes you unique is your story. In the 21st century, we do have this new paradigm shift, and we're moving away from matching to meaning. So Holland would say, what's your highest score in the self-directed search? And let's say it's social, and it's 40. All right, if that's your highest score, then let's match that person who is a social type to a social environment, and then you get congruence, and theoretically you get job satisfaction. But we're moving from matching to meaning. So rather than matching you to an occupation, what work gives you meaning? How are you going to design this into your life? So we move from the objective to the subjective. We move from scores to story. And we move from what to why. We don't get rid of the 20th century models, so P, fit, and developmental theories. We still have them and we use them. We call upon them. We just advance them. One of the really important parts of life design are the 4 constructs mentioned here, and that is reflexivity, narratability, adaptability, and intentionality. Reflexivity is being able to reflect upon the self, but not just reflecting upon the self to kind of know who you are, reflecting on the self with the idea that action will take place, that change will take place. So maybe you determine purpose, maybe you determine meaning, or maybe by having a life design dialogue and going through the career construction interview, you have a new perspective and you change your way of thinking. So it's not just simply reflecting on who you are and what you've been through, it's actually incorporating it into change. Narratability is your ability to tell a coherent story. And what we're trying to do is help the individual put that story into something that they can tell, and therefore it has to be coherent. We can link role models to early life recollections. We can link your favorite movie to your current life story. We want the client to be able to tell their story so that they know who they are and so that you know who they are, and also so that they know where they're going. We look at career as a story. It defines not only who you are to yourself, but it also announces who you are to other people. It shapes your narrative identity. It can give you comfort and help and strength when we run into difficult times. If you think about a transition that you've gone through in your career, or just in life in general, then what we might suggest is that you fall out of story. So what your story does is it will hold you. And then if you think about a holding environment, when you were young, your mum and dad held you as a child. Then when you go to school, the school holds you. And then when you go to college, the college holds you for a while. Then when you leave college, it used to be the organization that would hold you. And that's no longer true. So who holds you now? Yeah. So you are now responsible for holding yourself, and that's a pretty major paradigm shift. And one of the ways in which you can hold yourself is if you have a continuous and a coherent story, because that allows you to make sense of what's happened to you in the past, what's going on in the present, and what you might do in the future. So when you encounter occupational transitions and work traumas, if you have a story, then you know, okay, there's a break in my story, but there will be continuity. Stories are cross-cultural in nature. I've not worked with a culture yet where they don't use story to pass down tradition, cultural norms, etc. And I might be wrong, but it's one of the few cross-cultural career counselling techniques that I know of. So the continuous and coherent story provides comfort during times of trouble and trauma. And we fall out of stories sometimes when we experience trauma. A really easy example of that would be a gymnast breaking a leg, firewoman hurting her back, or all of a sudden there are layoffs. Then you fall into almost like a career existential crisis. And Mark Sivickas puts it beautifully. When you find yourself de-storied, when you fall out of story, The past no longer works. The new has not arrived yet. And you're stuck in the middle in this quagmire, in this void, and you don't know where to go and what to do with it. And what can be really difficult is if you have no one to talk to about that story, because you can't get it out. And if you don't get it out, it doesn't become real. So we look for story to help carry you and hold you through your life. One other quick thing I'll mention here. People in America right now and all over the world are becoming de-storied all the time. And one of the reasons for that is this process of de-jobbing in America. If you think about it, any processing could be digitized, could essentially also be automated. A really quick example is, when was the last time you were at the bank to make a deposit? And if you went there yesterday, don't put your hand up. So I haven't been to the bank for the longest time. So I don't go to the bank to deposit my checks. I just take a picture of the check, right? And then off it goes. So what that does is it saves me time, but it takes away a job from somebody else. And if you take that on a grander scale, it's happening all over America, all over the world. So people become de-jobbed and de-storied. Okay, some other quick things about stories. Stories are really rich narratives. They're not a list of factual things that got you here today. Normally a story has an issue in it. It has a problem that needs to be solved. And the stories actually can contain a lot of pain. One of the things that's really important in counseling and advising is that you're able to sit there and hold the person as they tell the story. So are you able to sit there as the tears fall and they talk about the losses from the past and the needs that are unmet in the present? If you tell me enough stories, I can look through the stories and I can look for repeated words, values, certain verbs, adjectives, and if I see enough of them, I'm seeing themes. And if I see a theme, then I'll see like an underlying pattern for the life, an underlying purpose, and it's that underlying purpose that gets me at the why. Because career construction theory suggests that people engage in work that's meaningful and mattering. And it's meaningful to you, but it also matters to somebody else. If it matters to another person, and it could be one person, or it could be a family, or it could be a society, then that's where the mattering comes in. So meaning and mattering is important. And then finally, if you tell us what you love to do, you're taking the private and you're making it public. So an occupational choice is a very public representation of the private self. And as we grow up from being wee boys and wee girls, we have both positive and negative experiences. There's not one person in this room that's not been scarred somehow by life. And you may have worked through those scars and those traumas, but we've all had our own stuff to deal with. And it's the negative experiences more than the positive ones that we tend to hold on to. And if you hold on to those negative experiences long enough, you can internalize the pain. Pain from the past can influence the present, and pain from the past can also influence the future as well. So it is suggested that work can be used as a means by which to transcend the traumas and the challenges and the wounds of the past. Work can be used to heal the past. And in doing so, what we're really trying to do is help people use work to move from pain to passion, from whatever is causing them tension to intention, from symptom to strength, and from victim to victor. And if they do that, then they're going to move from preoccupation to occupation, such that they can actively master what they passively suffer.